There is a major new development in the Mueller investigation. President Trump's newest attorney and his pal, Rudy Giuliani, confirming to Fox News that special counsel will follow Justice Department guidelines that a sitting president cannot be indicted. That sounds like great news for the Trump administration and bad news for his critics, because if what Giuliani is saying is accurate, it would mean the president is no longer in any direct legal trouble related to the Mueller probe. But it does not mean he's totally in the clear, because Mueller can still look for evidence of wrongdoing. And if he finds any, he can refer it to Congress for impeachment. So what does all of this mean for the Russia investigation? Well, it turns 1 year old tomorrow. It's not a baby anymore. Joining me now, Fox News chief political anchor. And not only does he host Special Report, he is Bret Baier. He's also the author of another book coming out this week, 3 Days in Moscow, Ronald Reagan and the Fall of the Soviet Empire. Awesome book. Well, I don't know how you find time to churn out best-selling books, but well done.
Caffeine.
Caffeine, that's right. What's your caffeine of choice? Coffee?
It's straight coffee.
Well done. All right, Bret Baier, that's how you do it. Let's do this.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about what this means for the investigation, because there has been a schism in the legal community as to whether or not a sitting president can be indicted, and it seems like Robert Mueller is following traditional protocol.
Yeah, I liked your script because you put the caveat in there that it's not over. It's not in the clear, even if Rudy Giuliani is right. And we should point out, we haven't heard from the special counsel's office on this or the DOJ, but he's saying that Mueller told the legal team that he's going to follow the guidelines and not indict a sitting president. Okay, that doesn't mean that people around the president or there's not more implications that are yet to come. These Senate investigations are probably going to wrap up, and the House investigation, but we could be months away, which is hard to believe, months away from the end of the Mueller investigation.
And do you think that he's going to put the brakes on it as the midterms heat up, which would further extend the probe?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would think they would try to be finished before the midterms, but if they are in a battle with sitting down with the president, the White House and the legal team is probably going to fight it. You know, I would think to kind of get what they want, and it could go all the way to the Supreme Court. I mean, you're looking at a legal tussle here that could last for a long time.
All right, so let me ask you this, because if there is any gray area in special counsel's findings, meaning if Republicans would interpret it one way and Democrats would interpret it very differently, and if it looks as though Democrats might take control of the House and therefore take something vague and turn that into impeachment proceedings, do you think that would have any impact on the investigation's timeline?
Huge.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we have to look at it through a prism of politics, because that's what this is really all about. It's a political thing. It's not, we don't think, a criminal thing, because you can try to prove conspiracy, but you still have to make the political case to impeach the president. And that's what would happen, likely, if he moves forward and the House controls is in the Democratic control. So that makes the midterms that much more explosive, doesn't it? The control of both chambers as you head into November. Yeah,
and I talked about it on the show last night a little bit with Dennis Miller, and impeachment is a watchword for both parties. It means something very important and very emotional to both of them, and it could be that rallying cry. So if there's so much uncertainty and we haven't wrapped it up, then I wouldn't be surprised to see it further politicized in that way. But it seems as though, you know, Robert Mueller is not going to come out and lay out the facts either way like James Comey did.
Right.
And a lot of people who've been watching this and waiting for leaks and waiting for any inclination either way, do you think they're going to be disappointed with the way this is delivered?
Totally. I mean, Giuliani says, you know, he tells reporters that he's like, just the facts, you know, Mueller, and he is very kind of tight-lipped. His operation really hasn't leaked that much. The indictments of the Russian trolls, that kind of came out of the blue. The Papadopoulos stuff, we didn't know about that. So I think we have to watch and wait. There is going to be a building pressure as we get closer to the election, with that looming, for this to come to an end. And it actually may be used in political way the other way. Not only the impeachment call, but also it's time to end this this investigation could be in ads around the country.
Yeah, especially if it's not particularly satisfying.
Right.
You know, if you have to wait and wait, like for a new season of Game of Thrones, it's worthwhile because the end product is usually very satisfying for fans who watch the process. But here, you know, if you just close the case, like, man, nothing to see, we're good, I think people's minds will
devastated.
be blown.
Resistance will, their minds will be blown.